You see, the moment a narcissistic woman realizes she no longer has control over you is subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it is profoundly telling. It's a quiet recognition that the strings she once pulled so effortlessly are slipping through her fingers. In that instant, you are no longer a passive participant in her narrative. You have stepped outside the carefully constructed illusion she has built around you. Psychologically, this triggers a deep sense of frustration and even panic within her. A narcissist thrives on dominance, on the illusion that others orbit around her needs and desires. When that orbit is broken, when her influence over you diminishes, it threatens the very core of her identity. This is not merely about ego bruises or wounded pride. It is about control as a currency, as a means of shaping reality itself. When a narcissist cannot manipulate your thoughts, emotions, or actions, she feels an existential vulnerability that is rarely acknowledged openly. She may attempt to disguise this with a mask of calm or feigned indifference. But beneath it lies a storm, a desperate search for leverage. You may notice subtle shifts in her behavior, the quickened speech, the carefully measured charm, the micro-expressions of irritation that betray a mind calculating her next move. These are the first tremors signaling the approach of her final manipulation, the last attempt to reclaim what she perceives as hers. At this stage, it is crucial to understand that her reactions are not rational in the way we typically understand rationality. They are instinctual, a manifestation of the fear and anxiety that control, or the lack thereof, evokes in someone whose self-worth is tethered entirely to domination over others. Recognizing this is empowering because it allows you to observe without judgment, to understand without condoning, and to prepare without fear. This moment, as fleeting and intense as it may be, is the hinge on which the rest of the dynamic turns. If you fail to see it, you may find yourself caught off guard by the subtle manipulations that follow. But if you understand it, you gain clarity, perspective, and most importantly, freedom. Remember this: when someone cannot control you, they lose power, but you gain insight. And insight is the first step toward liberation. Once a narcissistic woman recognizes that she no longer holds sway over you, she does not simply surrender. Control, for her, is not a matter of preference. It is a necessity, a psychological lifeline. Sometimes it manifests as sudden charm, unexpected gestures, or the illusion of reconciliation. These are not acts of genuine concern. They are calculated attempts to regain control over your mind and emotions. The brilliance of this final manipulation lies in its adaptability. She observes your reactions closely, adjusting her tactics to exploit vulnerabilities she has discovered over time. Perhaps she employs gaslighting, making you doubt your memory or judgment. Or she uses emotional blackmail, framing your independence as cruelty or self-respect as betrayal. Each act is a carefully measured step designed to provoke confusion, insecurity, and dependence. She is, in essence, orchestrating a psychological dance where she hopes to lead again, even as her grip weakens. Understanding this is crucial because it reframes your perspective. You begin to see these behaviors not as random acts of hostility or affection, but as deliberate maneuvers born out of fear and a desperate need to regain control. By recognizing the pattern, you strip the act of its power. Awareness becomes your shield, and detachment becomes your strength. You no longer respond out of fear or guilt. You respond with clarity and intention. The lesson here is profound. When someone resorts to their final manipulative tactic, it is not a reflection of your weakness. It is a reflection of their desperation. And desperation is never sustainable. You cannot be controlled once you understand the mechanics of their game. Stand firm in that awareness, and you will see that the final trick is not a trap. It is a final offering, an admission that her power over you has already ended. The psychological tactics a narcissistic woman employs when she realizes she has lost control are precise, deliberate, and often astonishingly subtle. They are not random acts of malice. They are carefully honed strategies designed to destabilize you, to make you question what you know about yourself and the reality around you. She knows the terrain of your mind better than anyone else, having observed your reactions, your weaknesses, and your desires over time. And now, in her desperation, she uses that knowledge as a weapon. Gaslighting is perhaps the most insidious of these tactics. It is a method by which she subtly reshapes your perception of events, planting seeds of doubt where certainty once stood. A word here, a gesture there, a carefully crafted story, each designed to make you question your memory, your judgment, even your sanity. At first, these moments may seem insignificant, almost trivial, but they accumulate, creating a fog in which she hopes to regain influence. Alongside gaslighting, there may be emotional triangulation, manipulating relationships, inserting herself into your interactions with others to provoke jealousy or guilt, to create a sense that you cannot exist independently without her involvement. What is critical to understand is that these tactics are rooted not in rationality, but in instinctive fear. She perceives your independence as a threat, a personal failure, and her response is driven by the need to restore equilibrium in her own psyche. The brilliance of these maneuvers lies in their subtlety. They are rarely blatant, rarely aggressive, but they are extraordinarily effective when met with unawareness. Recognizing them for what they are is the first step toward immunity. Once you see these strategies clearly, the power they hold over you begins to diminish. Awareness transforms vulnerability into insight. By observing her behavior without reacting impulsively, by understanding the motives behind her actions, you reclaim the territory of your mind. You begin to navigate the relationship not as a victim, but as a conscious participant, fully aware of the dynamics at play. The deeper lesson here is that control is an illusion that exists only when you allow it. When you cultivate discernment and maintain your inner clarity, these manipulative tactics lose their potency. A narcissist's power is never absolute. It is contingent on your response. And once you recognize the pattern, once you anchor yourself in truth, you realize that no external force can dictate your sense of self. Recognizing the red flags of manipulation is not merely a defensive skill, it is a form of self-awareness that protects your psyche and preserves your autonomy. A narcissistic woman, once she senses her control waning, will often escalate behaviors that, at first glance, seem contradictory or even confusing. She may oscillate between overt aggression and sudden displays of charm, alternating between accusations and false apologies, or shifting between emotional distance and calculated intimacy. These fluctuations are not random. They are signals, markers of a strategy designed to provoke doubt and instability. Learning to read these signals is akin to learning a language, a dialect of intention expressed through subtle gestures, micro-expressions, and tonal inflections. The danger lies in mistaking these behaviors for genuine attempts at reconciliation or self-reflection. The skilled narcissist will exploit your empathy, your hope for connection, and your desire for harmony. She understands that our minds are naturally inclined toward trust and explanation. We seek reasons for behavior, patterns that make sense. And so she crafts a narrative that entangles you in uncertainty, forcing you to question your own judgment. By the time you realize the manipulation, the emotional architecture she has built may feel almost insurmountable, but the power of discernment lies in its subtlety. Observing these behaviors without immediate reaction allows you to see the underlying motive, rather than the superficial presentation. When you recognize the pattern, the sudden insistence, the disproportionate anger, the feigned vulnerability, you begin to understand that these are not expressions of love, concern, or friendship. They are tools carefully deployed to test your boundaries, to draw you back into the orbit of her influence. Awareness transforms these signals from threats into insights. In this stage, your greatest ally is clarity. By naming the behavior, by labeling the tactic, you remove the illusion that it holds sway over you. You see the manipulation as it truly is, a reflection of fear, desperation, and the fragile architecture of her ego. And in that recognition, you reclaim your autonomy. The lesson here is profound. When you By nurturing your own self-worth and affirming your right to autonomy, you create an internal fortress that no external manipulation can penetrate. Awareness, boundaries, and self-compassion together form the triad of defense, a psychological armor that preserves your integrity while allowing you to navigate the interaction with insight rather than fear. The essential truth is that you are not at the mercy of another's psychological games. Your power lies in your capacity to recognize, resist, and remain centered. By taking deliberate steps to protect your mind and heart, you reclaim not only your freedom, but also the profound sense of dignity that comes from living consciously. In this awareness, you discover a quiet but unshakable authority, the realization that no one can control you unless you permit it. And once you embrace this, liberation is no longer a distant aspiration. It becomes an embodied reality. Ultimately, the journey of recognizing and resisting a narcissistic woman's attempts to control you leads to something far deeper than mere survival. It leads to liberation. When you have seen her tactics, understood her manipulations, and established the boundaries that protect your inner life, you arrive at a place of clarity that few achieve. Freedom is not simply the absence of her influence. It is the presence of your own conscious authority, the ability to navigate life with intentionality and self-respect. This is the culmination of every insight, every observation, every moment of self-reflection that has guided you through the earlier stages of understanding. Closure does not come from her acknowledgement or apology. It comes from within. It is the quiet yet powerful realization that you are no longer defined by her perceptions, no longer constrained by her attempts to dominate your thoughts and emotions. You are fully awake to the dynamics at play, fully aware of the strategies she may employ, and fully committed to responding from a place of truth rather than fear. This awareness is transformative because it allows you to disentangle your sense of self from the illusions she has tried to impose. You reclaim not just your independence, but your integrity. Moving forward, this newfound freedom demands courage and consistency. Narcissistic personalities are persistent and, at times, relentless in their attempts to regain influence. But your power lies in maintaining the boundaries you have established, in refusing to engage in emotional games, and in grounding yourself in your own values and perception of reality. Each choice to act consciously rather than react emotionally reinforces the architecture of your autonomy. Every step you take away from manipulation strengthens the resolve of your inner self and affirms the truth that no one can dictate who you are. The philosophical lesson here extends beyond the personal encounter. It is a lesson about the nature of control, influence, and self-mastery. True freedom is achieved not when external pressures vanish, but when we cultivate an inner life that is impervious to coercion, clear in purpose, and resilient in the face of challenge. By embracing this awareness, you transform what could have been a battleground of power into a path of growth, self-knowledge, and empowerment. Remember this: liberation is not given, it is claimed. The moment you refuse to be controlled, the moment you recognize your own authority, you step into a reality where no manipulation, no deceit, and no external force can ever bind you again.